of African ancestry. The first man to transform the food industry, the food transport industry in America, and to refrigerate the trucks because they were using the primitive method of ice blocks with food. He transformed the food industry. There again, Frederick Jones, an American, black American. You go and you look at a whole field of things. By the year 1913, 1,000 inventions by blacks were patented. And that was in spite of the fact that in the 19th century, around 1856 or 1848, there was a ruling from the Attorney General, who ironically was called Jeremiah Black. He ruled that you could not patent, a slave could not patent an invention because a patent was a contract between the government and a citizen, and black slaves were not citizens. So in spite of the fact that their early inventions had to be patented under the names of their white masters or later under the names of lawyers, yet by 1913 as many as 1,000 inventions were patented by blacks. So I went into NASA to find out what was going on in the space industry. They came to me and they gave me a whole lot of biography. I said, I'm not interested in biographies. I don't want to hear who married who and where they were educated. It's a waste of time. The biggest fools I have met in the world are the best educated. One of the things that I am most grateful for is that in spite of the fact I've been heavily miseducated for many years, I broke from it because at the root I was not a normal person. I grew up in the bush. I was not part of this civilization. From the time I came out and I looked in the city, I didn't like city people. I can adjust to them now. But there's that inherent distrust, because I found that people who had learned things from books, written in a certain way for centuries without much change, just echoing the lies of the past, knew very little about what was and what wasn't. I therefore depended on my instinct, which I tried to kill for many years, but it kept haunting me until it broke through the shell. That was responsible for my survival. The constant doubt that springs from the fact that it is impossible to totally suppress the soul of man. I found, for example, while I was at NASA, that the leading black at NASA was the man who had coordinated all the work of the scientists to produce the world's first space shuttle. The man who was responsible, who was the director of the Dryden Flight Research Center, who coordinated all the work of the scientists to push up that first space shuttle, was a black man. His name, hold on a minute, is Major Gilham IV. Major Gilham IV. The leading technical astronaut whom I had a chance to sit and talk with the day before the launch at Cape Kennedy, Colonel Gregory, Frederick Gregory. He's the leading technical astronaut. He's one of the 3 men who were sent up to check out the space shuttle before it goes up. He was the man who was selected to redesign the cockpit, the brain of the space shuttle. He redesigned 5 of the cockpits because the first one was screwed up. He was responsible. I have a picture of him sitting blind in the middle of an aeroplane, blind, landing it on the point of a pin. He's responsible for introducing one of the most important new safety devices in airplanes, which will become common in the 1990s, the micro-instrumentation landing system, whereby whether the pilot is blind, dead or drunk, that plane is going to land at the point of a pin. He was responsible also for inventing a new power controller, which will enable the pilot, cut hand fatigue in half, enable the pilot to control all the systems in the airplane with one hand. And you find also the toilets, even the space toilets are designed by a black. And this was the best design they had, because there's a problem in space when you have a call of nature, it doesn't go down, it goes up. And they're always experimenting. So a few shuttles ago, they tried some balloon thing and it burst on the way down. It was a very nasty landing. And he, the same man, Bob Sherney, invented the tires for the moon buggy. They had to find tires that would be 10 times lighter than Earth tires, yet would be able to have traction on 1/5 the gravity of the Earth, which is on the moon, and yet carry the weight of the machines, etc., the instrumentation. Sherney defined that. Sherney is also the only man who has spent the longest time in states of weightlessness without going in a spaceship. In the only aircraft we have, the KC-13509 aircraft, the only aircraft that flying a parabolic curve achieves weightlessness. And it achieves weightlessness for about 1 minute. It's known as the vomit comet, because when it spins, everything you have inside of you, unless your train comes out. And the leading researchers in hypersonic research, for example, the leading researchers is a black woman. She's the one who solved the sonic boom. Dr. Christine Darden has solved the sonic boom problem, which will enable us to fly several times the speed of sound at the whisper in the 1990s. I met her also at Cape Kennedy. The two leading black researchers and the leading researchers in space medicine are two black women, one an Afro-Hispanic, Dr. Cowens, and one Dr. Long, who've invented a device which enables you to exercise your involuntary systems, that you can change your heart rate like the yogi. It's like a quantification of yoga. You can change your heart rate and your blood pressure. These things will be spin-offs which will affect the general populace later. These things are necessary in space because we find tremendous problems emerging in space. You go up in space and you find lots of the fluids in your lower system collect, because you can't, it's not like one of those great spaceships you see in the space movies. You can't go running about jogging in the morning, but you have to exercise. You have to keep in extreme fitness because you're operating in zero gravity. And they have done tremendous work in space medicine which will make a tremendous amount of difference to this. One of the things that I found extremely heartening, and let me end now, was that NASA was appreciative of what we were doing. They ordered 1,000 copies of this book, Blacks in Science, so that their astronauts and others could study it, so that they could see what contribution Africans were making both in ancient and modern times. The first copies were given to our two leading astronauts, Colonel Gregory and Bluford, and these men are aware, even though they do not participate in this, they are aware of how important the work they are doing, how they become standards in the world. And that is what I want to end on. We are not doing this simply as an academic exercise. This is not just an accumulation of new facts. These things are presented because we can only heal, and this is true for the black as well as for the white, both the prisoner and the imprisoned, both the prisoner, and the jailer. We are doing this because it is necessary to revise the history of man. The tremendous anguish which is deep in the heart of all of us, which arises out of these falsehoods, the falsehoods upon which this civilization are built, have got to go. This is a movement which is sacred. There was a time when certain people were able to take their history and turn it into a sacred document. History, the study of history in times such as this, can become a sacred activity, a religious activity, whereby the fragmentation that we have suffered, the sense of loss, the sense of alienation and homelessness, can be redeemed by a sense of wholeness, a new sense of wholeness. Such a sense of wholeness can only spring from what we bring here, a new vision of history. Thank you very much.
you.